And away we go. Okay, so for today, what we're going to do is the plan is we're going to do about the first portion of the class. We're going to be doing floor framing, and I know you have an assignment due for that. Go ahead and just, if you don't get done, that's fine. I will try and fix it. Here's my dilemma with the Canvas and the gradebook. If I adjust the due date after they're created, the gradebook for the district creates a duplicate of the assignment, and then the best you can get is a 50% of that grade. And so I'm trying not to do too much adjusting, but we are quite a bit behind where I plan to be at this point in the school year. And so I'll see what I can do to fix all that. I might have to just delete out of the gradebook and put it in manual as well too. So if we don't get done today, don't freak over it. It's a little complex. There's a lot of thinking today, which I know is kind of hard sometimes, but that's okay. What we are going to do is we are going to add floor framing between the basement and the main floor. We'll do the same process for those who have a second floor. We'll do the exact same process there as well. This is very, it's not temperamental, it's precise. And even though it's precise, it's just getting things laid out. And so hopefully, if you have questions, please ask questions. Don't just sit and think it's just gonna soak into your brain automatically, because this will not, okay? It really will not. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go into the first floor plan to start with. And the reason here is the floor framing for the main floor is to support the walls on the main floor. That's why I put the framing underneath it. So you want to look at your floor plan, and you're gonna have to make some pretty firm decisions at this point. Make some really good choices about where you need to support your house. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark up my plan. This one, again, is quite a bit larger than what any of you are doing. So hopefully it'll make sense to what we're doing on here. And let me get my little handy dandy tool that I really don't like, but we're gonna use it anyway. And we'll go with that. So when we're looking at our framing, you can only span so far. And when we talk about a span would be something like 2 walls. So 2 walls, and that could be your exterior walls or your interior walls. That's what these pens represent. And they're similar but different. How's that? And then your framing, this is gonna be tricky. How good can I do this? Not that good. Would be the support of the framing between those 2 walls. There's a maximum distance that you can go before the material that you're framing with fails. And for residential, it tends to be right around 25 feet. Some can go a little further, some a little less, but that's kind of the average. So 25 feet is kind of your average think about moment. And it makes sense because most homes are only 50 feet deep as a general rule. Now that there are exceptions. I mean, we do have these big mansions out there that are bigger than anybody can deal with. But on a general rule, about 50 feet deep from the front of the house to the back is a pretty average home layout. So as we are working through here, we want to figure out where our framing is going to go. And I'm going to do a lot of bouncing back and forth here to try and explain this, especially where you're not all here and not able to see everything. So when I do my modify, my measure, if I want to look at where I would assume framing could go, okay? Now, most of you don't have any experience with this, and hopefully some of you watch the videos in the course, which if not, I'm just gonna breathe and let it go, because there's only so much I can mandate, right? All right, so I have a big open family room here, and that family room has 2 distinct dimensions. If I go from the outside wall and I go all the way across the building, I'm at 35 feet. So I already know I'm not going to do that because it's way beyond the average. So that's not going to be an option. If I come back to the wall here, I'm at 20. That's probably a little more realistic. I could span 20 feet. That works out pretty well. Before I make any firm commitments to myself, I want to evaluate my plan as thoroughly as I can. So I'm going to do another distance, and I'm going to go, let's say, from maybe this wall over to here, and that again puts me at 39. So I'm starting to see which way my shorter distance is that spans the biggest area. So there's a lot of conflicting adverbs there. The biggest area that spans the shortest area. I mean, it's kind of it's really hard to explain without you actually doing the process. So if I'm going to keep my evaluation going, if I go this way, that's about 18 feet. That's good. And I could go here, and that's about 13, kind of good. You can actually frame each room individually. I could do framing for this room, and then framing for the bathroom, and framing for this room. You can definitely do that. And it is done from time to time. It's a lot more work for the contractor to make sure they don't put the wrong material into the wrong room. They have to pay very close attention to what they're doing. It's like a giant Tetris puzzle that's all spread out. They have to figure out that. Okay? Now, the other thing I want to look at is over here, and this area is kind of large, so I'm going to do evaluation there. I've got 18 foot there. That's good. I can live with that. Across the master suite, 25. I'm right at the average. That's a little scary. I can maybe make it work, but I'm on the high end of 25 at 25 foot 8. That can be a little problematic, so I'm going to go the other direction. And at 27, that's not much better. But there's a wall here. And if I look at that wall, if I go to that point, it's 15. Now, let's talk about what's happening here. So we're talking about bearings between 2 points. Okay. Now, if I happen to go and there's a point in the middle, like this wall here, that shortens my bearing. But that means that there's a wall in my basement where this is, or a beam, or a column to help support that up. So you have to kind of, what you do in your framing directly impacts what's going on in your basement, because you're supporting these walls above. So I'm going to do a little map out here, and so maybe you can see that. Based on what I've just done, I'm going to use red to kind of hopefully mark out where I'm wanting my framing to go. Now, first and foremost, any wall that is around a stair it's going to be a bearing wall. In fact, on your basement, there'll be a footing underneath these walls. These walls need to be one of the last things that come down in a house. They should hold up really well. So I know there's a bearing point there. And in this plan, that also kind of carries along to that wall. All of my exterior walls are by default bearing walls. So every one of those is going to be a bearing wall. And I could trace them all. I'm not going to trace them all because for time. But so I know those are bearing. They're going to hold up the weight of the house. And then I have to decide where I have walls that hopefully line up, because you've looked at plans and it kind of worked out. So I know that probably right down through here is a bearing point. I'm pretty sure that this will be a bearing. And we've got the wall here. We've already kind of determined that probably need this to be a bearing point. I've got an exterior wall here, which is kind of redundant with all the stairs there. And in my distance here, I'm going to take this down through here. And if need be, you go ahead and mark up your plans. If you need a color pencil or something, we can get that for you. But you do want to think, okay, here we're going to go across here. And that's going to break up my house to where I'm pretty sure I can frame it. Okay? Question? You just turn the mic. Nope. Okay. By all means, let me know if there's a question. Now, what I have to do is figure out how it's going to go. So I'm going to plan out the way my floor joists are going to be laid. And that's kind of what's kind of nice. Now, the floor joists we're going to use engineered lumber, TGI, which is a truss joist. It's going to be an I-beam shape. We use those, one, they're stronger. They span a greater distance than something like a 2x12 can span. And that's about the biggest one we'd use in a floor is a 2x12. It's cheaper. If I had to cut down a 2x12, that means the tree I'm cutting down to get a 2x12 piece of lumber has to be at least 18 inches in diameter to start with, because I do have to remove the bark and all the branches and all that kind of stuff that goes along it. And then because trees taper, the taller they get, and the narrower they're at the top, in order to get a constant length. I don't want to necessarily do that to a big tree. That's really not, unless it's absolutely something you'd like for furniture or something that's exposed. I'd rather not use wood in that capacity, especially when what we build our TGIs out of can be manufactured much more readily and I have more strength in it. A 2x12 that spans 25 feet, you would need 2 people in order to put that in place, minimum, because it's gonna be kind of heavy, it's bulky. The same length as a TGI or an engineered joist, 1 person can do. So now I'm saving labor, which is also a really huge thing, because right now framers are making starting framers about 18 an hour. Seasoned framers are about 40 bucks an hour. So that's why these opportunities to get connected with contractors and designers is so good for you guys, because there's a lot of work out there and we need people to do the job. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and I'm going to change my color so you can see them a little bit. There's not really good colors in Zoom, but it's all right. We'll make it work somehow. Okay, so what we're going to do is, if I'm doing my framing, I'm going to probably come across horizontally along here. And so I would do that the whole way down. Now, notice this wall is not on the bearing line. The walls that are above can be off of your bearing point by 2 feet either way. As long as this wall is within 2 feet of the bearing position on the basement, that's good. So that means that I don't have to make a wall where this guy is. I just have to bring one off this corner. So it helps the layout, the basement space better. And I finish these horizontals out, and they'll just carry on down. Here I'm going to go vertical, and I'm not going to do the whole lines. I'm just kind of do this a little quick, because this is a long lesson. It usually takes, if I'm doing this in a high school setting, on normal bell schedules, this is about a 2-week process. I'm going to try and do it in half of this class. We won't get it all. Okay, so I know I may be able to go vertical here. So these will all be vertical down this line. And now I've got an issue. These are going to turn. I'm going to go horizontal here. That means this transition point, I'm going to have to be either a bearing wall or a beam. And so let me finish these until you get an idea which way I'm going with everything. And I'm just throwing things in here now. And because of the stairs, and then go these vertical, it's a little easier when you got stairs involved to do that. Okay, so now I've got mapped out. I do not do wood framing for the garage. Please don't put wood in your garage. Don't put it, now you do have the porch that we've done, and I can't move my zoom, so we're gonna just do the porch. They'll stick out here. Now remember, that means I've got an extra wall that's a bearing, the front of the porch is a bearing, this wall is a bearing, and this wall is a bearing. Knowing that, I've broken this down into this as being my greatest span, and these are less than that. The TGI that can actually go from the back of the house all the way to the front of the porch, because I have bearing points along the way to support it and shore it up, so it's not saggy. You don't want your floors to sag. And you can go and look at some of maybe your grandparents, if they're still in the home for a long time. You can see floors that sag. You can feel them sag as you walk across the floor. There's a little swoop in there. You want to avoid that. If I'm going to go in and do a beam is shown a little differently. They're usually shown as a line, a dot, a line, a dot, a line, a dot, a line. So I'll probably put a beam there. That way my open space in my basement can stay open, especially if I'm not sure what I want to use that space for. And if you guys are kind of panicking, going, I don't know what I want in my basement, it can be unfinished. You don't have to show every wall. You do have to show bearing, but if you don't know where you want bedrooms, don't worry about it, okay? we've got a not weird enough year without stressing over things that aren't worth stressing over. And that's a big challenge for you guys, I know, because you want to stress over everything, because every one of you wants to fix the world that's in your core nature, and you can't, by the way. I tried. It takes more than one person to do that, so let that go too. Okay, just do what you can. Okay, now, so this is the plan that I'm going to use for this house. Yours are all going to be individually unique, and this is probably one of the drawbacks of me giving you autonomy in what house you do, is they're all different. Okay, but because of that, we're also going to learn a little more, especially if you're sitting by someone you can discuss and talk it over. And in a normal year, I would put you all into row groups, and you would talk about things for 5 minutes, plan out, help each other. We're just going to barrel through, because I'm trying to figure out how to get this house done. We have a deadline, and one of the things in architecture especially, because you're the designer, you cannot miss a deadline. You don't have that option, because everybody below you relies upon that. So your deadline starts when the client comes and says, we have our construction loan. Now, construction loans are good for 180 days. Okay, you can extend those, but they usually add more interest on if you do. So right now you can get a construction loan in Utah for 1.75%, which is amazing. Thank goodness the economy sucks and we don't have to pay a lot of interest. That's a good and a bad. Okay, and really Utah's economy does not suck. Our economy in Utah is very, very strong. And for those of you who want to know why, it's strong because we have a very conservative government that requires a balanced budget every year. If you look at the states that are struggling, they do not have a balanced budget in their constitution. And so they just spend. And if you just spend uncontrollably, you outspend what you can bring in. And just like your own budgets, right? So kind of keep that in mind as you grow and decide, wow, which side of the coin do I want to live on? You can live on both sides of the coin. You can be on both sides. You don't have to be a dead-on conservative. You don't have to be a dead-on liberal. You can be in the middle and just let that coin spin. That's good. Okay, so we've got this down, and I'm ready to move forward with it, and I want to make sure my economy's in place. I want my money below. Your construction loan, once you get occupancy from the building inspector, that means the building inspector from the city or the county says, yes, you can move in, then that construction loan converts to a mortgage. And they add on another interest point. So now you're up to 2.75%. That's hardly anything. When my parents built their home in 1976, interest on a home loan was 22%. We were going through a very, very deep recession that time. We had a gasoline shortage. The United States currently is neutral on our energy production. We don't buy from anybody right now. That will probably change next year. Kind of sad, but we are independent right now of energy, which is what keeps your gas low, keeps your heating and cooling low, because we're not paying market price for everything. We're self-producing. So at that time, my parents, well, they needed a house, and so they built, and it's cost them quite a bit more than what that same house built today would cost. And it's about the same size as what you guys are doing right now. Okay, so here we get into our research side. Okay, and then need you to open up the great and powerful Google. Oh, I got to clear my screen. Hang on. We don't want all that. Yeah, great and powerful Google, which by the way is starting to suck a little bit. I'm kind of not happy with it. They took off Google Music. It's really making me sad. Really sad. Because now I have to go to Amazon to buy music now. It sucks. And then I got to download it. What's that? No, there's not. It is done, gone. It went away. So Google only sells movies and books now, not music. Okay, so I want you to do this. We're going to go in, and I want you to just do a floor joist span chart. So just floor and then joist. Joist is J-O-I-S-T. It's like moist with a J. Span, S-P-A-N. Spans the distance, not spam. Don't do spam charts. You don't like what you see there. That's like how to fry Spam, mix Spam with cheese. Okay, you don't want to do that. Okay, then hit enter. Now you then get a whole bunch of these images, which are span charts. We want to use one that's really good for our area, and I'm hoping I get that to come up. Oh, let's see. It's not bringing up the one I want. How nice is that? Okay, we're going to change one word. Change out the floor to TJI. The TJI stands for Truss Joist, and that's a brand name. So we're just going to make it a little more controlled. And that's what I want right there. Okay, that should bring up your very first hit as being from Weyerhaeuser. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of the history of Weyerhaeuser. Weyerhaeuser is a German company. They have facilities in the United States. Weyerhaeuser purchased Truss Joist McMillan, and that was the U.S. company. They ran a bunch of paper mills and lumber yards and loggers and all that kind of stuff. They purchased Boise Cascade. That might be a little more of a familiar name to some of you. Boise Cascade is still around, but they've been broken up into smaller companies. Boise Cascade now makes paper. They do not do lumber products anymore. So the lumber product was sold to McMillan. McMillan was bought out by Weyerhaeuser, and that's where we are today. So knowing the history of a company is important because you need to know where the wood comes from. All the wood that this company uses comes from Oregon, Washington, Northern California, and Idaho. So when you fly over that part of our country, you will see that the forests there look like giant cornfields. There's parts of the trees are short, parts of the trees are tall, trees are different color. Our forests in that part of the United States are managed just like a farmer's field. That means there's not a shortage of lumber, that they're being environmentally sound. So when you hear people complain about tearing down forests, they're mainly referring to what's happening in like South America, where they're just bulldozing it down and not replanting. In our use of lumber in the United States, we're very good about what we cut down, we replace. And we manage it just like a farm, because that's what they are, they're tree farms. Okay? So let's go ahead and click on this link here. It's going to say TGI 210, 110, 230, 260, 560. Click on this. Now, I used to just put this in the Canvas course. It's really big file, and it tends to take a little bit of memory. If you're going to be serious about this, you're going to probably want, I mean, as far as to do lots of houses, you don't want to download a copy of this. I used to do that all the time as well, just keep downloading. I went and cleaned up my files this summer. I had 39 copies of this. It was crazy, one for each project I've done. And so I've tried to stop the download because I just don't need to store what someone else's server has, okay? So you guys got this open because you'll get lost so much on this if you're not paying attention. This is really not easy to explain, but it's an essential part of doing forest, okay? All right, so let's take a look at what we can see the picture. I'm gonna make this a little bigger for those who are online. So we're looking at the specifiers guide here. This is what a TGI looks like. This happens to be a 9.5 inch, this is 11/7/8, and this is a 14 inch. You can actually order 16 to 24 inches as well, but they are very, very much more of a custom order, which means they cost more. Okay, now if you look at this, the top portion of these three styles here, up through the 11/7/8, are made out of plywood. The top's plywood, the inside's particle board. So the plywood is where we take the log, and it's kind of like running it through a cheese grater. We put the blades down, we peel off a layer of it, and then we lay it flat, we peel off another layer and turn it the other way. So they're sandwiched, crisscrossing, which doubles its strength, which is why plywood is such a good building material. It's not a great crafty material, but it's a really good building material. That's the top portion here. So they're in layers. It looks like you cut through a 16-layer cake. The web, now this is called the flange. There's a top flange and a bottom flange. The inside is called a web, and it can be an open web, which means it's made by this V-shaped struts that go through there, Usually those will be aluminum straps or steel straps. That's when you get into the larger size, like 14, 16, 24. They'll do an open web construction. But this is made up out of particle board or oriented strand board. Sorry, it's not particle board. Particle board is that crap your tables are made out of. Oriented strand board. Where is this wood from? Where do they get all this weird shaped wood pieces? This comes from forest, yeah, but what part of the lumber process? Where would we gather? So particle board is sawdust and glue. Where do you think this is?
Wood.
This wood pieces here, these little chips of wood. Yeah, it's exactly, it is. It's when they cut a 2x4 to make it square, there's rounded portions. So that gets sent to the grater and made into thin wafers. And then we got lots of those. So all the rounded parts of the trees get used here. We are now using 99% of every tree that's harvested, including the leaves. So we use leaves. What do you think we use leaves to make? To make what? Fiber? Fire? No. We don't want to burn. No, that's bad. We take the leaves and they are used to, they boil them down, they pull out the staff out of those, and it's used in the making of turpentine that we use to clean paint up with. Okay. We also use the sap that they steep out of these wood members as well. So pine sap is the main ingredient in turpentine, and it comes from the process. So we use everything. It's kind of nice. All right, we're gonna scroll down a little bit here. I want you to go to, let's see, it's gonna be page 4, no, page 5, 6, sorry, move 2 charts. Go down to page 6, looks like this. So this is the first place that if you are doing a very large home, you need to kind of know what's going on, because I made your I-joist for you in your template. There may come a time when you have to make your own, okay? Especially if you go in and do a major commercial situation where you're using wood. We can use wood in commercial buildings. There's actually a big movement right now that we start building high rises or skyscrapers out of wood instead of concrete and steel. And you guys have got to become really informed in this field, because there's a lot of things that people make assumptions about and they get politically motivated with. Right now, they're saying that concrete is destroying our atmosphere. Concrete. I'm going, okay, well, it uses calcium. Calcium's part of the hardening agent that makes cement harden. And we have to mine that. So I guess if you're looking at mining, then maybe. But concrete is 100% recyclable. I can't recycle a building that burns down. I got charcoal. I guess I meant make coals, but you can't sell charcoal briquettes in California because they destroy the atmosphere. So we have a lot of weird things that people get excited about. As a designer, you need to be versed on both sides of every equation. So if they're worried about concrete as being harmful to our environment, but it's 100% recyclable, I have to make an environmental decision as to why I want to use that product, because you very well may be challenged on that. Wood is also renewable. It's a very renewable resource. But in order to make a member that is 14 inches thick, I might have to wait 150 years to be able to harvest that. That's not very profit generating if I do that. So there's a lot of issues that you have to be aware of, especially as you start using alternative materials. Bamboo is definitely an option. We can grow bamboo in the United States. It grows in our southern states very well. It makes a great flooring material. It also is a really good structural material. But bamboo is not wood. Bamboo is grass. It breaks down and decomposes rather quickly. So again, it's a good building material. We've been building with bamboo for thousands of years. But these people also rebuild their home every 10 years completely. So there's a trade-off there. And the more you learn about what materials are available, the more options you have to design them. So this page 6 here, what it's going to do is the side panel here tells you how each of these members are built. So the 110 series here, this is your cheapest, or cheap is a bad word, well, the least expensive option, can be up to 16 inches deep. It gives the dimensions for the flange and the thickness of the web. That's good to know. And so we have these dimensions. So I have all of these depths that I can use. So if I want to use a stepped floor system, so if I'm in the living room and I want to step up into the kitchen, for example, the living room I could do with a 9.5-inch and the kitchen with a 16-inch, and I would have one step between those two rooms, just because the floor is thicker. So that's one way of using these tables as a design choice. Now, I'm not saying bring back the sunken living room conversation pits of the 70s. They weren't good. There's no way to put furniture in those suckers. No one likes them. They're meant for little hippies and their lava lamps and their beanbag chairs, and that's all they were good for. And I've done, in the last 5 years, I've remodeled 22 homes in the Salt Lake Valley that have had conversation pits that we've had to figure out how to get rid of so we can put furniture in there. Furniture just doesn't fit in stepped spaces. So if you want to be a hippie, that's fine. That's your choice. But don't screw up the buildings when you do that. Okay? It's a lot of work later on. These buildings also in the 70s had a lot of other issues. The wiring is aluminum instead of copper. Aluminum, when it gets too hot, melts. You've all melted aluminum cans in your forest fires, your campfires. Probably were forest fires. Aluminum melts when it gets too hot. The electrical current can get hot enough to melt its own wiring. So it's been a busy year. Let's just say that. The most expensive down here is the 560. Now, when you look at the 560, I want to look at the size of the flange. That is a 2x4. It's a solid dimensional piece of lumber. It's not plywood at this series. These are very, very sturdy, firm walls, especially putting a lot of weight on that floor. Okay, and that's what we're going to look at here next is the weight. Now, there's some information here for your physics and your span charts. When you get into your junior year of college, and that's a ways off for most of you, this is when you start using this calculation stuff. But you need to make money before then. And so the charts have been already done. Your engineer will use this to justify what you've chosen. So yeah, that works. The math works out. That's what an engineer does. They like the numbers, let them do the numbers. You like the drawing, you do the drawing. It's kind of a nice partnership. I've never spent more than $1,000 for an engineer to review a drawing. And that's not bad. If you know about the square footage of your house, you're charging $2 a square foot, you can afford $1,000 for engineering. Okay? So it's not too bad. Okay, we're going to scroll down a little bit further now. We're going to go down to the next page 7. And this is a large, there's 4 charts here, actually, that we're going to look at. And there's 4. We're not going to look, these down at the bottom they're not span charts. We're looking at these span charts. Okay, so, but yes, there are 3 groupings of charts, but there are 4 charts right here on the screen. Okay, so the first one up here has an L480 live load deflection. So let's first define the word deflection. The best way to do that is if you're on the freeway and you're by a flatbed truck that's empty, that truck has a bend to it. If you look on that from the side, that flat part of the truck is bent. It bows up. And so when weight's put on it, it flattens it out. If it has too much weight, it's going to rub on the tires. We don't want to do that. So we just want to have a little bit of a camber or a deflection that when it's loaded, it stretches out and lays flat. That is how we do almost all of our structures in the United States now. So if I can do that with concrete as well. It's called pre-stressed concrete. It's made in a factory. They take big old steel cables, they stretch them for the concrete. Concrete hardens, they release the cables, and it makes the concrete bend. And we use this for parking garages, we use it for bridges. Every one of those has a bend to it. We bend concrete by doing that. If those cables snap, people die, so we don't want that to happen. It's like the Golden Gate Bridge. And see the movies, the Golden Gate Bridge, cables all snap and they go whipping around. That's what happens. If they don't break, they're very careful. But we want this stressing to happen so the building has a way to breathe and to live. We want that weight to go down, just like on your chest, in and out. We want the building to have that breathability. The load live is another term that's also on your state tests that are coming up in about 2 months. Woohoo! Remember that review you did at first that no one wanted to do, so none of you didn't pay attention to it, so you just did quick and you didn't care. We didn't get another shot at it because I knew that's what happened. Okay? So we planned for those things. Live load. Let's define what live load is. Does anyone have a definition of live load? And online people, feel free to contribute and be part of the class. Okay, say that. So way to people. And you got a store in your house? What you selling goods for, man? Okay, so by goods, they're also meaning furniture. Okay, now furniture that is excluded from that, there are 3 specific furnitures. Filing cabinets are not considered live load. Fish tanks of any size are not considered live load. And water beds are not considered live load. They exceed the average weight. Even if it's a 10-gallon fish tank, that's a lot heavier than what people think it is. And it's usually only sitting on 1 floor joist at that point. So that 1 floor joist has to be able to hold that 100 pounds of water that's sitting there. And so when we look at those items, we treat those a little separately. Live load is also anything else that moves. So people and furniture can be moved around. We don't move aquariums very often. We don't move full filing cabinets very often. And think about a filing cabinet. Is anyone in here? There's not. Like a regular filing cabinet, you can put a whole tree in those suckers. 1 page at a time. Have you ever picked up a tree? They're kind of heavy. And the paper is very heavy. When I did the first security, well, they're not first security anymore. They're Wells Fargo's main building, downtown Salt Lake, when we remodeled that. The original builders of that building were back pioneer stock type people. The floor was only 4 inches thick. And where they were storing all the bank records, the filing cabinets were sinking into the floor. So we had to reinforce that. It's kind of a scary situation. Because below that was the lobby where people were banking. That would have been a bad movie scene, really bad movie scene. So we ended up having to rebuild a floor inside the building where people were working. It's kind of a trippy activity. So the other things we have that move are wind. And in Utah, our wind load has increased in the last 15 years. 15 years ago, our maximum wind load was 75 miles an hour. Our maximum wind load now is if you're in the Salt Lake Valley, it's 95 miles an hour, which is a Category 1 tornado. Weber County just moved to 150 miles an hour. That's a Category 2 tornado. We get that every single day along the Wasatch Front. We have lots and lots of winds. They come because we're in a valley, and when the valley warms up, the winds go up the canyon. And when the valley cools down, the winds come down the canyon. And so we have winds morning and night all year long. And it's always good to see that. I love these questions coming as emails. The reason, Carson, you're excused is because you're on distance mode right now and you're not present. And, you know, attendance really doesn't count this year at all anyway. You can't pay attention to that. There's no penalty for missing classes this year, right? Because we don't know when you're going to be sick or not. So why would if you're out for COVID for 14 days, you've already now truant, and you got to start the year over by old rules. You can't do that. You've got to be a little flexible. So that's why you're marked as excused. You're on dismissal. Okay, and because I'm not going to, I can't mark the attendance you guys on dismissal. It's blocked out. There's no way for me to change it. So, all right, now we've got that story down. We got our live load, wind. What else is moving in our state that changes? The ground, we have earthquake loads. Yes, seismic loads or live loads. We've had a few of those this year. Yay, 2020 tells us everything we need for the rest of our lives. So exciting. And we've just had some recently snow. Snow is also a live load because it's not consistent. It's only present in the winter, and we don't have it wait in the summer. So that means your roof is going, ugh, and it's got to like deadlift all winter long. Now, this year, there's a high probability that your mama and papa are going to say, we need to shovel the roof So 1993 was the last time we had an El Nino cycle that we're on right now. We're right back into that. It's an every other year cycle for Utah. So we're on the second cycle since then. It's usually a heavy load of snow, then a light load, then a heavy load. We're on the heavy load cycle, and we've already had early snow. So it could be a pretty snowy winter. Yay. Water's just coming. Okay. Let's figure out how to use these charts now. Dead load is the weight of the building. Dead load is just the weight of the building. So all the wood that goes into it, that's the weight of the building. Now, if we had a normal year, we would calculate how much your house weighs. We're going to skip that, okay? Because while it's fun to do, and it meets off the math requirement for standard 1, we're not going to do it. And if the state doesn't like it, that's too bad. There's no way to test you on it, so I don't care. Okay, so we're just not going to calculate the way you're building. There are calculations. Revit will tell you the way of the building when we get all done, so we don't really need to do that. Okay, now, this top set of charts, the one on the left here is for a 10-pound dead load. The one on the right is for a 20-pound dead load. If you compare the two, everything else is the same except the spans that are in the infill. So if we look at like the 24 OC, that's 24 inches on center for the 9.5, 110. Just got to follow that across here. And let me get my little handy dandy mark up and destroy the world stuff here. So if I look at this value right here, and I look at the same value in the other chart right here, there's a difference between those. If I only have a 10-pound load, 10 pounds per square foot of dead load, I can span 13'7". If I up that and double the dead load weight, I can only span 12'9". I lose a foot, basically, the span. So you can use either chart. I will tell you what I do because I don't like to get sued. It's kind of a scary thing. It's only been one time. It wasn't my fault, so it's okay. I like to use this chart. I like to design a little more conservative. Now, that means if they don't put in a big old hutch of dishes, then that weight isn't as much because it's not just to sit there. They don't have a fish tank, great. They never buy a waterbed, excellent. If they don't believe in paper, wonderful. Then my life's good. That building's gonna last forever. But I don't know what is going to happen in the next 200 years that that house is in there. Now, Utah does not have any 200-year-old homes. We are approaching the 175-year-old mark. We do have homes still in the valley that are that old, but we have a lot of those older homes that are falling apart. In fact, there's one that I was going to do a remodel on that literally the outside walls have pulled away from the house and are falling off. Because when they built in the 1700s, they did not put rebar in the walls. They just stacked the brick up and called it good. And that only lasts for so long, okay? Down below, we have the 360 live load deflection. This is the building code's minimums, okay? So let's take a look at that same area in both. Up here, I can go 13.7, but if I go with the building code, I can go 14 feet. Over here, it pretty much stays the same on the other side, but the building code is a little bit more risky. They'll let you do a little bit more edgy stuff. Is that wise? Could be. I mean, sometimes you have to say, yes, I can squeeze out that extra foot because I really don't want to buy another longer piece. And that gives you that option. It still works. So for me, I use this chart for just about everything I do. It's a little more conservative. If I meet that requirement, then the house is going to be stronger. It avoids squeaky floors because I know how important it is to be able to walk to the kitchen in the middle of the night and get that cookie and not be caught. It's important. Yes. They're just series. So just the 480 is it's a divisor. You take the live load divided by that, and that gives you pounds per square foot. So 480 is we're dealing with the length of the joist. Oh, purple. Yeah. It's the length of the joist. So it's just a divisor. So this is the engineer's preferred. This is the building code's allowance. They're just multipliers that are given to keep everyone on the same page. Okay. Good question, though. Okay, so now I'm ready to start sizing. So that means I'm going to do a back and forth thing on this as we work. So I'm going to turn this thing off after I delete that again. So I'm going to slide over here. Here's my house. It's all nice and clean again. Now, when we place these, you're going to have to be really, really diligent with the settings. Okay, I'm going to place them on the first floor. I think it'll be a little easier for you to see what's going on. Now, in a normal, if I was just in the house myself and not teaching it, I'd be on the basement level putting these on. But then I wouldn't see them. I'd have to trust that they were there. But that comes with experience. So we're going to do this a little bit easier. Did anyone do floor framing last year? Any of the classes last year did floor framing? This is about the point when everything shut down and everyone went home. And so that's another part of the reason why I blended you guys all together, is to cover what was missed before, bring it back in. Okay, so I'm going to do my span again. I'm going to go, and notice I'm saving now, so I'm modeling good, proper etiquette, save my work often. If you haven't saved for a while, do Control S. I'm going to go from this wall down to this wall. That's going to give me a distance of about 20 feet, more or less. So about 20 foot is going to work. I'm going to call it, yeah, 20. I'll get my lines walled up. Yeah, I'll go 20. If you want to get really exact, you can get this inside center of the wall on the stud and go to the center of the stud down here as well. And that'll get you more of an exact span because your joists are just sit on that wall of the basement or on the beam. So I'm going to call this 20 foot, 1 1/2 inch. And maybe that exact about putting it down. So I'm going to use that. That's my number. I'm sticking to it. I've written it down so I don't forget, because we're already forgetting. As you get old, things go 20 foot, 1 1/2 inch. And I'm bringing the chart back. So I'm in this area here, and I'm going to bring up my notes again. I apologize, so I can mark this all up. I need 20 foot, 1 1/2 inch. So this will work. And then everything down this entire column here will work. And I'd like you to stay in the 11 7/8. That's the void cavity that we gave you in the template to use. So we're going to use 11 7/8 for floor framing. The reason I'm using that, that's the most common size used. And it's also one that is a little more established. Okay? When I go over here, I can use this mount and the one below. And I got to go all the way down to here or here. Okay, now, as you see, that's kind of a graduated chart. So once I know what I can use, now I have to make some financial choices on behalf of my client. So these values above, let's switch color here, right up here along this area here, and I'll put the 24 in. So I have 12 inches on center. That's the space between each floor joist, or 16 inches on center, which is the most common, or 19.2, or 24. So my goal is to have the lowest type and the greatest spacing now. Because if I want, this is the cost chart, 110 is the least expensive, 560 is the most expensive, and I want to have as few of these as possible. So if I'm looking at these, it looks like 16 on center is probably my best choice here. But if I went 19.2, it's going to cost me more, but I'm going to buy fewer of them. Make sense? So you have to kind of play this game. And a lot of times I'll give the contractor the choice to bid them all out. Then the owner can choose what they want to pay for. You can do that in your negotiations. You can let the contractor find them the best price. But 360s, that's getting pretty beefy there. This works really well, really does well. But this is what I'm going to use. We use this 360 at 16 inches on center, right there, and that's what we go with. Okay, look on your charts for your house and make your choice. If it starts to get cold in here, let me know. The AC just kicked on. I don't know why. You're cold. Oh, it's depending between support point and support point. So what you're going to use to hold that up. Okay, so let me clear this off and I'll show you what I did again. So on mine, I'm going from this outside wall to this wall. So down the basement, that means there's going to be a wall or a beam along this line. Okay, so that's what I'm looking. So I'm going to support it here and here. Now we've already established that I'm supporting here as well. I can just buy one long piece and bring it down. Oh, what? I'm going to support here. So let me show you what that's going to look like. Okay, because it does make it go a little bit faster to lay these out. Or you can break it down, whatever works for your vision. Okay, so I know I'm using 11 by 17. So are we good? You guys know which ones you're drawing with, what your spacing is. Okay, you know the size. I've kind of given you that, 11 to 7/8. Now I just got to lay them out. And then go to Structure tab. This is a structural element. And I'm thinking, let me just try something here because I'm trying to remember how I built this template. I have a bad feeling right now. It's okay to have bad feelings. That just means you got to remember. So you told yourself to remember, but you can't remember what you told yourself to remember. And I just want to see if I can see it. Nope. Okay. We're not going to be able to show them here because you won't see them. So when I set this template up, this is the area I'm working in, but you're not going to be able to see a thing that you draw here because I created your pages for you. And I did that this year because I didn't know what was going to happen if it was completely online. This is back in May when I did this for you, and just trying to plan for everything. So if you would be so kind now, you've got our measurements here. Go into your floor plans and go down to first floor framing and open that one up. That's not much better. That's showing floors. Let me see what I've got. Let's see if I can get this to. There it is. Okay. So now once you're there, go to underlay and change the range base to show your first floor so you can see it. So you're in the first floor framing. Find underlay in your properties. Change it from none to first floor.
I don't have that for some reason.
Okay, did you download the template first before you imported your IFC?
Yes.
You should have that.
Huh.
So I'm not sure why you wouldn't have that. You don't have the first floor framing at all?
No, I don't.
Okay, what do you see on, you have a, okay, let's, for you, try going to the basement and do the same thing. Make the first floor visible. It should work there.
Okay.
And just kind of talk me through what's happening.
Okay, did that.
Okay, so when you get there, can you make it so you see your main floor?
Yes.
Okay. So if what we're going to do next, you can't see, let me know. Okay.
Okay.
This will work where you're at. Okay, everybody else here good? Okay, here we go. In the structure tab, you click on beam, where TGIs, joists are all beams. So we click on that, and then in your properties, if you open that up, you've got some dimensional lumber, the ones that are most commonly used. There's some exposed truss beams. There's an LVL. An LVL is a laminated veneer. That means you take 2x4s, you glue them together and make it into a beam. That's what that is. And then you have your plywood web joist. That's what we're putting down, is a plywood web joist. It's a flange with a web. Select the 1 3/4 by 11 7/8. And I'm going to start at the corner of this space, I'm going to be on the wall, and I drag that all the way down through my house. Don't hit the edge of your porch. You just come a little short of your porch. If you have a porch there. If you don't have a porch there, you can take it through the whole space as long as you're planting bearing points. And so you're going to see a single line there. When you get really close, it's a different type of line. But just draw that line across the span of where you're going. Now, what I made the other kids yesterday do is this. They stopped here, and I made them just view each space individually. I think you guys are a little bit better at listening to things, so that helps.
So like I can't see the line for the
You can't see the lines at all. Okay. Let me think about what we're gonna do there. And your file is on a different computer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me think for just a minute. I'm gonna go help a question, and I'll be right back.
All right.
Build a wall, not build a wall. Okay, Victor, do you have a file that's inside of your browser under structural plans? Do you have a framing plan there?
On structural plans?
Yeah, under project browser, under structural, do you have any plans there?
Structural. Let's see.
So it'd be above yours, those floor plans.
Be above. Okay. Project browser. I don't think so.
I can barely hear you.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No,
Okay, so you can't see it on the basement. You can't see it on. You don't have the first floor framing. What floor plans do you have?
I don't have all of them from what I'm seeing in your screen. I only have bottom of footing, bottom of garage footing, basement, finished grade, first floor, foundation, second floor, top of footing, and top of garage footing. I don't know why I don't have all of them, even though I loaded up the template.
Okay. I'm not sure exactly what happened there either. Something's a little off.
Yeah.
You've drawn one line, correct?
Yes, I have.
Okay. You try going to your foundation level, or see if that'll bring it up.
Nope.
I'm totally guessing at this point. It's gonna be really hard to see if that's where it's at, though.
It's not there either.
Not there either.
Nope.
And it doesn't show. Okay, here's what you can do. This is gonna work. So if you are where you can't see it, okay, and you guys can all see yours, right? Okay, so Victor, this is just for you, okay? We're gonna go into your first floor real quick, and you have a horizontal vertical line here that goes through your whole house, your section cut.
Let me put one down real quick.
Yeah, it should be, yeah, put it down so it's going through your house.
Okay.
You get it?
Yeah.
Okay, go into that view, and you're gonna select each of the floors. So you got your carpet, your tile, pick a floor. In this case, I don't have any carpet here. You're gonna have to do this for every floor. So if it's carpet, tile, wood, and then this void that's here, okay? So when you get that done, then click it once, just pick one of them, go back to your first floor, it'll be highlighted, right click and hide in view. But make sure you're in the first floor when you do that. Once you get those all hidden, you should be able to see the framing line.
So basically, do I just hide and view all the carpet
all,
and
all the all the floors. Yeah,
all the floors? So basically, no more floors and whatnot.
correct. And then you'll bring them back when you're done.
Okay.
Okay. That's about the only thing I can do without seeing your screen.
Okay.
Now, for the rest of us, and then once you get that where you can see it, you're not going to draw all these lines. I'm going to go and fix this back again so it's where I want it. And I kind of went a little far, but that's okay. Okay, now we use the offset tool to put these in up until the next length change. Okay, so I'm going to go modify, and I'm going to go to offset. And the value that I'm offsetting for mine is 16 inches on center. That's inches, not feet. Please make sure you pay attention when you type in 16 that it doesn't default to feet, because then you lose your lines. For mine is 16. That's up to you what you did on your chart. It's based on your plan. So it would be 12, 16, 19.2, or 24. It's one of those four values. The higher the number, the actually the cheaper it is to build. So I'm going to highlight this, and then do 16 inches really quick like so it doesn't turn into feet. And when I get that in there, I just bring down to where that line is. I'm going to go to the right. There's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5. I just keep going. Now it will yell at you if you overlap. It'll yell at you really bad. Can you see him there, Victor?
I'm still trying to
hide everything.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go to that point. That's much I'm going to do right now because I've got change nature here. Yeah. Yep. Be right back, Victor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's the 12 inches on center. So highlight that whole thing. Type in 12 inches. Shift. Otherwise, or you can just put it in 1 foot. Okay, but it's there now. And then you come down, you get there, and then you just come. All right, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. Did you get yours figured out, sir? No. What's that? What strategies? Well, it's choice. It's just choice. So you're going this way. You have so where you're bearing which thing is what for. When you're also you have like base mass here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have plates going across. So you're gonna have a set of beams that come down from the middle here. And so you're going to do this. The beam here, you're gonna take that guy, and you're actually for right now go from that point all the way down, straight down here, and then go 6 inches on center. When you get to here, you have to shorten the line. You shorten the line. Okay? Yep. You've got a very point here. Is this a porch? Is that a wood porch or is it yeah. Okay, so remember our definitions. So your deck's on the ground, porch is up on the floor line, and then you have a deck. So which is that? Is that deck? So yeah, he's not going to stop it all. You were just stretching. Just click on it. Doesn't modify. Let's select the line. We got a blue dot. Here's that. Yeah. Not sure. Well, that's off the chart. So how far is it spin? You would use the wall. And you don't spin here. Here. Right? So you gotta know what that spin. So if you're like 21, so that you probably see you pull it all the way down. don't go over your stairs. Yeah, you got stairs. Don't put framing over your stairs. You got to cut each of those out and do. So I would do yours this way. Right. I mean, this wall here, you're very well here. The stair walls is very. Okay, slow and steady. Lots of steady. Shoot. When you decide to spend. So when you measure that where you span, if you don't have a bearing point, you got to check the direction. Okay, so feel like on my side there, I don't want a bunch of bearing walls going there, so we can change the direction. Okay, so these will be shorter here. So that's the bearing wall there. Yeah, I didn't change my wall. You can, yes. Well, you just shift. You should be up here. But if you want, change the light. Okay, so yours is up here, right in front of the screen. Okay, so let's change it. Maybe. No, you have to put a beam in. Yeah, you drive it to the wall. Yep. Okay, I'm going to put a beam in, and then they do some more, so you can see kind of what's going to go on here. Okay, Will, I'm not sure exactly what your situation is. Are you distance all the time now?
No, I'm just distance learning for the next 2 weeks.
Okay, now the schools take care of that already. Your 10th is already pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all kind of done.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Okay, real quick before everybody leaves. I can't span this distance here at all. There's nothing here to build with, okay? So I'm gonna put a beam in, and a beam I'm gonna put is between right through here, and then I can span. I can still do the same thing I've been doing, but I can't go this much longer, okay? There's just not room from here up to here. Does that make sense? So my span's for 20 feet down to here. Let me put the dimensions on this. So from here to here is that's my 20-foot one, okay? But I cannot do from here down to here because that's 29 feet. So I've got to plan on how to put a support in. The easiest way to do that and still keep open space is with another beam. So I'm going to do our structure, beam, and the beam I'm going to use is this LVL. So the LVL laminated veneer is a solid chunk of wood, so it doesn't have the web, which means it holds more weight, and I can hang my floor joists on it. So I'm going to use this 11/7/8, so it matches my depth. If you want to use the 14 because you want the beam to stick down below your ceiling, you can do that. There's an architectural feature. That's a choice. But this beam is going to run right across from the top of this wall over to this wall. And it's going to look pretty much the same thing. And then I can now do my offset again. And this is when you change length of line. I do one. And I'm going to modify this one so that it now goes up to this wall. God, and shaky. Because now this beam is supporting it. And I can continue that process till I get to the next change. So now it's offsetting over until I get to my next change in the distance. Here's my cold storage area. Happy day. Because of the way I did that, and I don't want to put stairs in, I'm just going to frame over the top of it. It's not economical that way, but it's the way I build it, so you can see a cold storage. So I just keep going over until I get to this point. Now, my bearing is this wall and this wall. This one's off by about 2 feet, so I'm going to keep going. And one more. That takes in that area. Now I've got to put a new one in, back to my my plywood web joist. And I come up here. Now, when I draw across here, if I'm starting a new series, the distance from the edge of the building must be 16 inches or less. So whatever your spacing is, your first one must be less than or equal to that. Don't go more. So I couldn't put this one here at 24. It has to be 16 or less. Then I'm back to my old games. Now this one I could probably do differently. This span here, it's still in the 11.7/8. It's 12'6". So here's where I can save my client some money. If I'm only going 12'6" with 11 7/8 TGI, I can make that sucker go, well, I can go 24 inches on center there. That's going to save me money, which is going to help my client. So instead of 16, I've got this guy. Yes, it's closer than 24, so I'm not going to change it because that's just extra work for me. But I'm going to change my offset now to 24 inches or 2 feet. And these guys will be a lot fewer of them. So you can see kind of the difference there. But I'm going to save some money. And if I can save money, my client's going to like me because it's good to be liked, because so much of our life is spent with people not liking us. And they don't even know us. It's so weird. So just going to come along here. Oops. That chime is when I overlap them. And so you'll get that from time to time. Okay, so notice the difference in the density between the 16 and the 24. It's a lot less framing there that I'm working with. Okay, makes it a lot less cumbersome. And we're just kind of keep plugging along here. Now, William, are you still with me, or have you got left? Okay, here's one more thing you guys have to do before I finish this out. And I usually do this at the end, because once I make this next change, I won't be able to see my framing in plan view anymore. Okay, and I'm going to mess this up a little bit so you understand what I'm doing. To mess it up and then do it off the side, because I'm tired of redoing work. I'm just going to draw a beam straight down here out in space. It's the same as these guys, no big deal. When I select that modifying beam right here, it has a start and an end position. It's based off of the first floor, and this offset is what I'm looking at. So it's right at where all of my flooring is. If I go into 3D, if I didn't have carpet here, you'd see it. In fact, you can start to see it coming through a little bit here. You take the carpet and hide the carpet. Oh, there's 2 carpets there. How cool is that? See all these lines? That's my framing coming up through my plywood floor. It's right at that 0 level. So what I have to do here is change the offsets by a -3/4 of an inch for both. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's a -0.75 inches. Make sure you don't do feet, because that's 9 inches. 0.75 of a foot is 9. And that, notice it just disappeared. I can't see it. Now what you want to avoid is this. I'm going to put that as feet. I can see it again. And then, oh, it's great. Everything's wonderful. I can still see it. I must be better than the teacher. Well, that's okay if you say that. You can say that. But when I get over here to the side, it's at a slope. That sucker's sloping. These are meant to be used as roof rafters as well. So you have to make sure the start and the end have the same value. And before, I'm just doing this before Will leaves. I will change all of these at the end. Okay, I don't do them at first because you can't see them. I do them at the end. But be aware, they gotta go down 3/4 of an inch because of that flooring. Okay, so it's just that tedious little detail stuff. I'll show you a couple ways to do that. Does that help, Will? I know you gotta go.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Okay, don't bite the dentist. They get really mad when you do that. It is kind of fun though.
Yeah, I think
it puts a grown man's hand in your mouth and puts 2 of them in there, should be bit. Just, when you think about it, it's really gross. Have fun, Will. May you have no cavities. Okay. So I'm gonna fix this though. Notice I didn't do framing over here. Okay, there's no framing here. I gotta fix that. So I'm gonna put that in. I'm trying to show you different configurations so that when you are working, again, your starting one just has to be less than or equal to your spacing. So I'm just gonna bring this down so it matches these guys. I'll do my offset again. I'm going back to 16. The reason I'm going back to 16 is I want to match this deck. And it's not very many of them, but by matching the deck, I won't get a bounce. When you go from a narrow spacing to a wide spacing, you get some bounce in the flooring. And I'm just trying to avoid the bounce score, well, as far as that may be. So now I've got different configurations going around here as I lay this out. Okay. Let me give you a minute. I'm trying to get done quickly here so you guys can work. So I'm going to stop the demo part right here. And I'm going to show you how you can move these all down easier than picking them one at a time, okay? Okay, so this will be the last of my new stuff, and then I'm going to let you guys work. And then go on to my first floor again. I'm going to find my section cut that goes through the majority of the house. Now, these over here are going a different direction than these. I want the section cut that's perpendicular to my floor joist. I can't see the floor joist here. Okay, so when I select on this view and I go to that view, and back out, here are my floor joists. Look how pretty they are. Look how they stick up in my floor. Okay. Now, the way you don't want to just pick and drag. You cannot do that because again, they'll tip. So don't do a move. You don't do a move. Please don't do moves. What I want to do is I'm just going to do a window and select as many as I can. I just want those, and then to change my setting over here. And it's 0.75, it's 3/4 of an inch. And then you hit apply, and they'll just shift down. So now they're right underneath the floor where they should be, okay? But you don't drag them because you will tilt them, okay? They're kind of precarious. Then find where your blue ends, and then you select the next grouping. Now, don't do the crossing window, that picks everything, okay? Solid window select. And if you get really good, you can do more than one grouping. Get them all picked there, and then change those values. And it's just, it's just a little easier to do it this way. So do that one, and that one. And that leaves a couple here. Now over here where they're running a different direction, let me fix these last two, I guess. Those last two, thought I had them. Sorry, I'm trying to go fast. Maybe fast isn't always good, but I really want you guys to have opportunity to work today. That's my goal, always my goal. Get those two fixed. Then to do the floor joist here, I go back to my first floor. I move my vertical one over to here. And I pull this one down because I haven't got the porch here. So you have to think about where your areas are. And then if you go to the view here, you'll see them as these eye joists, so these will change, okay? Whew, did it, okay? Questions before we move off of